All right, everybody, we're going to be talking about quickly assessing severity when it comes to a motorcycle accident. On the back side of the rescue card, this is what it looks like, basically. So head injury symptoms, spinal cord injury symptoms, shocky symptoms, like we briefly talked about in the awareness part, and then the treatment. The treatment is pretty much that. So we have all these things that are going to give us an awareness of what's happening, and then when this is kind of like what we can do. So assessing the severity, this is very important. We want to make sure that we know what we're doing here, and we want to make sure that we're not causing actual issues. So we need to identify any signs of head injury problems, spinal cord problems, shock symptoms, and kind of what we're doing. So let's go and talk about head injury symptoms. Head injury is the easiest thing for me to really find out, it's not always going to be a symptom, is that if they look like they're drunk after a crash, but they definitely weren't before, we either have, well, diabetic issue. If your friend has diabetes, maybe that could be an issue, but more than likely we have head injury symptoms. Okay, we have a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. Traumatic brain injury sounds pretty scary, and it kind of is, but it's a catch-all for anything that could happen to the head when it comes to like an acute, something very short happening, like something just, boom, just happened, not necessarily a chronic issue like Alzheimer's and whatnot. A traumatic brain injury is going to be something, boom, right there. So a concussion is a head injury. It's a traumatic head injury. And then we have, a bullet going through the brain, also a traumatic brain injury. So when it comes to a concussion hitting your head, your brain sloshes around, hits one side, hits the other side, just starts hitting all the different sides of the skull on the inside, causing contusions, causing like bruises, causing some issues, maybe some bleeds here and there, and we start getting down to the higher scale. So we have possibly skull fracture and some brain coming out. That's even worse. But just even shaking your head, you see how you start getting a little bit of a headache. It starts to feel a little bit painful, but it's not like crazy. Imagine hitting your head. If you have hit your head and you've had a concussion, you know what I'm talking about here. So we got to watch out for disorientation. Okay, you can shake your head and kind of give yourself a little bit of a disorientation, a little bit of vision impairment, maybe even get a little nauseous, and then like lose a little bit of balance. You see, doing the whole baseball or the baseball bat thing, and then trying to run. That's what a head injury looks like, and it's as simple as that. So if you don't want somebody riding a motorcycle after doing the baseball spin and trying to run to the thing, then maybe after a motorcycle crash and they look like that, let's not get them on a motorcycle. So let's go ahead and prohibit them from riding. Let's just go ahead and talk to them. So the best way we can do that is just take the keys, put it in our pocket, and be like, dude, your keys are gone. I don't know where they must have flown off, but you put them in your pocket and you wait for them to kind of slow down, and you pull the keys out and throw it next to the bike once they feel better or the police show up. That's what I would do. So yeah, focus on that. Don't let them get back on, because they're not going to have the balance to ride a motorcycle, and they're just going to hurt themselves even further. So spinal cord injury. Okay, this is something that we got to watch out for too, but there's not much we can do when it comes to spinal cord injuries. It's just going to give you that gee whiz information. Once again, we don't want them to get on the bike if all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, my back really hurts and I feel like I'm going to fall over, but I'm going to get on my bike. No, we're not doing that. We're going to lay down. That's going to be the biggest thing. Laying down, supine. Supine is on the back, prone is on the front. So if you've played any video games shooting prone, it's because they're on their stomach. Laying down, supine is laying on their back, kind of just relaxing. And that's going to be very helpful, because the ground itself, especially if it's flat, is acting as a splint. Okay, if the ground is flat and the back is on the ground flat, it's not bent around, right? So it's a splint. Let's lay them back, lay them on the ground. Let's not lean them up. Let's lay them on the ground, especially if you detect any of this stuff. They're like, man, my legs feel really tingly. My legs don't, they just feel weak. I have pain, right? It's just like massive pain. I feel unstable. So if any of you have ever broken a bone, all of a sudden it just feels like the scaffolding of your body just went away in that area. So if you broke an arm, it's like, wow, it feels heavy all of a sudden. It just feels like it's falling down. Like if you start to see that when it comes to somebody like, man, they try to get up after they maybe broke their back, they're like, I got a lot of pain, but it's like, I can't, I have to hold myself up. Let's lay down. You probably have some broken bones. Shock symptoms. Okay, so this is, like I said, it's hypoperfusion, which is going to be basically low blood pressure. The tissues are not perfusing. They're not getting an oxygen and food exchange with glucose and all that stuff, so they just pretty much collapse. So what's happening here is that typically with motorcycle accidents, it's going to be a loss of blood, so it's going to be a loss of fluids, or it's going to be a neurogenic shock, which is going to be a brainstem issue, which basically controls the heart and everything else. So if that happens, more than likely it's just going to collapse all the blood vessels because of the nerve system. And this is a gross overgeneralization. Or you're going to have a loss of blood. So you have a break in the container, so the vessels, and you're going to have fluids leaving. So now you don't have enough fluid for blood pressure. So if any of you guys ever worked with plumbing or worked with any type of, pretty much plumbing, you understand that if you just don't have any fluids, you can't do anything. You reduce suction, you reduce, the output and the flow. You're not getting it. It's not good. You want to have it working. So that's what's happening here. That's why we have a weak and absent pulse. We have either internal, external bleeding, or neurogenic shock, which is just the fluid's still there. It's just the blood vessels are just like not working. So nausea. So what's happening here is like if you ever had a drop in blood pressure or a syncopal episode, which can just be fainting, you kind of feel nauseous because all the blood basically went out of the stomach, went all to the major organs that need to be working. So the food is just like sitting there, not having fun. Confusion, so you have a loss of blood flow to the brain, you start not having the glucose, you start kind of waking up and you're like, what's going on? And you start asking the same questions over and over again, but you're just kind of confused overall. Anxiety, because nobody wants to feel different. This is new, this is not good, this isn't new like I'm having a great time, this is new as in, I just got into a crash and now I'm really confused, and that's where anxiety starts happening. And that's when we start having the rapid and shallow breathing, because now we're trying to compensate for the low oxygen, so we're trying to get more. Pale, sweaty skin, so the skin, once again, all the blood shunts to the major organs, so the skin doesn't have basically the building blocks of, or all the workers, basically, so then it just starts to dump fluids. Body doesn't know what it's doing right now. So hypovolemic and neurogenic shocks are common in motorcycle crashes. I just talked about that a little bit briefly, but all we can really do here is our treatment protocol. Okay, so we have to put them on their back like we talked about, cover them with an emergency blanket because keeping them warm is really important. Now, if it's super hot out, you're like in Arizona or wherever, and it's just super hot out, you might not need an emergency blanket. You might need it underneath them so that they're not burning on the asphalt. Maybe take your jacket off, put some clothes so they're not burning on their asphalt. If anything, you might even use it as a shade for them. But the main thing here is that they want to be warm. Okay, you want to keep the person warm. Removing helmet and jacket and promptly call emergency services. Hopefully you've already called emergency services. I wouldn't remove the helmet or jacket. You could just unzip the jacket and kind of flay it open. And when they're like laying like this, so the jacket's nice and open, they're laying like this, just, if you want to, you can cut just one straight through here, cut the jacket, and then it just kind of opens up. I'm not going to take it off because now we're moving their spine to take it off. Same thing with the helmet, we're taking it off. It's messing with the cervical spine. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at this right here. Now that you have that knowledge, let's go ahead and assess the severity of this. We have somebody laying on the ground. Nobody's really wearing gear, but how many motorcycles do we have involved? How many do you think we have? It looks like 2. We have the Can-Am and that other person. So we have 2 patients, multiple people. We're remaining calm, we're ensure our own safety. We want to stop any major bleeds if there are major bleeds. But we have to quickly assess the severity. The person in the middle of the road is not moving, not doing anything, and what we understand when it comes to quickly assessing the severity, we might have a head injury, spinal cord, and shock is a little bit later, but that could easily happen. So